Welcome along, one and all, to PSGL Season 37 PSF3 powered by GT Omega. This is the 6th round of the championship coming to you from Suzuka. The Japanese Grand Prix is the main event of the evening. My name is Daka and I'll be taking you through the action here tonight. Alongside me is your new permanent PSF3 commentator. It is Mr. Ghost. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. I was with Logan last week for my first foray into PSGL, but it's great to be here and hoping for another great race like it was last week once again.
Yep, can't wait to get into the action. So just getting kicked off on a very, very wet Suzuka circuit to get things kicked off in this event. And well, Suzuka is a track that's a favourite of many drivers, certainly a favourite of mine. It's one where qualifying is very, very critical, and in these changeable conditions, Ghost, well, this can throw up all sorts of surprises then. These next few laps you're going to see are also crucial for tonight.
Absolutely, it's such a tough track to absolutely nail, especially Sector 1. And then even if you do nail Sector 1, you're under pressure for the rest of the lap to deliver, and it's so easy to get it slightly wrong at Spoon and you lose time all the way down the straight. So yeah, it's going to be a real test for the drivers today, especially in these tricky conditions.
Yeah, but let's see how they're going to tackle it then. We're just getting started then with a couple of the first flying laps. NLR Spiser on the intermediate tyres. Interestingly, everyone has decided to go out early, so no one's waiting for the conditions to improve. Everyone's trying to get lap times in as soon as possible. So let's track Spiser, heading up towards turn number 1, flicking it in, hitting the top of 7th gear, downshifting into 4th, feathering that throttle through turn number 2 and planting the throttle pedal. You can see that bit of oversteer stepping in then. Now into the S section as Franek just gets back into the session. Had a couple of connection issues, so I hope that everything is okay for Franek as NLR Spiser navigates the tricky S section. It's a delicate dance of the throttle pedal through Dunlop 2. Again, oversteering. You can see how difficult it is to keep that car planted. First sector times would be in the 31s usually in the dry, but obviously in these intermediate conditions it's going to be slower, and Spiser getting it a bit wrong there through Degner 1 and running off the circuit. So we will look further back on the track then to the man immediately behind AMS Wards, who navigates that turn, that hairpin turn then at 35.4 was the time for the first sector. You can see Spicer just up ahead. Remember, won't be getting any slipstream. There's no collisions in this qualifying session. He flicks it into Spoon Curve, 5th gear running up towards the edge, and another invalidation then. So we're seeing already, and the Suzuka isn't a track I'd associate with track limits violations, but maybe these drivers just being thrown off a little bit by the different conditions and maybe just slightly misjudging those corner entries.
Absolutely, it's definitely the different conditions that are throwing them off, especially at Spoon, where it's even in the dry it's so easy to run wide and have to lift off, but in the wet, especially on this game where the wet conditions are so unpredictable to drive in compared to previous games, it can almost feel like you're driving a four-wheel drive car at times, as we get the first fastest lap in at 37.8. That's immediately beaten by Chris Rebel at 37.3, and then immediately beaten again. So the time's coming in thick and fast, and Coolman goes to P1 as well with a 36.7 is the time to beat now.
On Coolman, by the way, took the victory last time out in Hungary, resisted a late charge in that race from Franek to Shorney and moved to within 4 points of the championship lead of Leonardo. So NLR Coolman took big strides in that last round and is right in that fight. And as you mentioned towards me, as Finley goes fastest 10, keep an eye on these times because they're going to keep coming in. But as you mentioned to me before we started broadcasting, the top 2 men in the championship, Leonardo and Acid, aren't attending here tonight, which is going to throw things wide open in that title fight. It's a great opportunity for drivers like Coolman.
Absolutely, Coolman sitting in P3 in the championship right now, and with the points tallies being so close, just a few points in it between the three of them, it's a great chance for him to take the initiative and take the lead here today. But Finley is going to be snapping at his heels because he had a great effort last week, it has to be said, from the back of the grid after he lagged out of qualifying several times over. He had to fight his way all the way back up. At one point, it looked like he might win the race, but he still managed to recover decently, and he's not too far behind. So if he can win this race as well, we get another faster time. I think the track is definitely getting quicker. But yeah, opportunity for Finley, but particularly for Coolman to sort of get a comfortable margin at this point in the season as we approach the halfway mark.
Yeah, of course. Remember, it is 16 points for a race win in PSGL, and currently there are 5 drivers within that margin of the championship lead, so it is still very, very close and all to play for. We've had most of the drivers getting first laps done and on to the board, as it seems like the majority. I'm watching Moy Cooley, who's decided to try and continue on by the looks of things, but nearly 0.6 of a second down. We're keeping an eye on the conditions too to see if they evolve in any which way. I think Frank Jashorny has just started a flying lap, and well, I wasn't in attendance for last time out in Hungary, but I've got to say, just by looking at the results, that was quite some lap that he put up last time out in Hungary in that qualifying session. Had a difficult start to the season, but has clearly progressed in terms of speed. Was also close last time out, and that quali pace could play such a part here in Suzuka, so I would say a driver to watch for tonight.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Obviously, I haven't been here for the first part of the season where Jashorny was struggling, so all I've seen is him being fantastic as he was in Hungary. But yeah, obviously looking at the standings, you can get that perspective to see just how much of a turnaround it was last week. So we'll see if he can keep that momentum going, because often that can be so important in a racer, just having that momentum to push through when you're having a poor period. Coolman, by the way, has gone purple in Sector 2, so across the line he goes, and it is Paul at 35.9. First one to get into the 35s. I think these times are going to keep on dropping.
The drivers continue to adapt to the conditions. It's hard to see whether the track is actually going to improve or not. Franek comes over the line, goes fourth, 36 flat, right in there. Look at that. Sviatek, Joaquin and Franek covered by 1/100th of a second between the three of them. So remarkably tight stuff. Finley is also finding time. He's an 18 flat to the first two sectors, which is right on par with what Franek was doing just a moment ago. And he goes even faster in the last section into the 35s as well. 135.983. So the times are coming down. These drivers are finding speed, but maybe no one finding more speed than NLR Spiser comes over the line. 135.427 takes a huge bite out of the top times then, and wow, half a second margin. That's not something you often see in league racing. So NLR Spiser putting down a marker, and you'd have to say he didn't have much, if any, better conditions than the others. So that's just pure speed. And, well, you'd have to say NLR Spiser, a bit of a psychological blow to his opponents. They may be scratching their heads looking at that, because that is quite a margin of, well, maybe not victory, but certainly in professional standing over the others then. Spiser, that's going to take some beating.
Yes, Sviatek, just a big improvement though as well. He went purple in Sector 1, and he's ended up 2.5 tenths off, which, well, in the context of half a second, that's a lot less, but in the context of this particular track, that is still quite a lot of time between the top two. So Spiser really setting down a marker there. But yeah, you can often get these sorts of gaps in wet qualifying, I find, where one driver just really finds the time and finds the lap that they need, where everyone else is just trying to struggle to get there and can't quite do it. Just one or two corners that are easy to mess up, especially at Suzuka. So yeah, we'll see if that is indeed a nailed-on lap from Spiser, and if improvement is going to be difficult, or if the track is indeed getting better.
Yeah, that remains to be seen, but we still have 8 minutes left in the session to try and see it. So let's keep an eye on the session as it progresses. I'm watching MS Wards at the moment, who's heading through 200R. Not really a corner in the drive. It can be a bit sketchy in the wet. It should still be fine for these drivers. Wards navigating that second part of the spoon curve, picking up that throttle pedal, putting on the deployment, and away he goes down the straight towards 130R. Getting in the 117s has been the benchmark for really quick running here, and that is well within the 117s from Wards through the first 2 sectors. So Wards is right on target here. Let's see what he can do through the Casio triangle then. Bit hesitant on the turn and then just making sure to catch both of those apexes, get it stopped and rotated, battling a bit of oversteer on the run up to the line. Wards goes check second and only just behind Spiser. They have chipped away Spiser's advantage and Wards comes oh so close there. But Wards getting into the mix, and it's yet to be seen as to whether some of the other drivers can shake up that pecking order and get up towards it. Those two clear at the moment, but we still have 7 minutes to go in the session and a lot more hungry drivers ready to take on this circuit and try and find that pole position, which is so important at Suzuka.
What a way to introduce yourself into the qualifying session. Hadn't done a lap before then, and then goes 18 thousandths behind the lap that looked unbeatable not long ago. Although, having said that, Moikuli in the mix as well, a second up in Sector 2. And looking into the final chicane here, down towards the line. That's not too bad from the overhead camera. And Moikuli over to the line. It's going to be close. It's a 35.5, and suddenly that lap from Spiser is looking more and more vulnerable as more and more people improve. But just look at the times there. 7 tenths or less than 6.5 tenths between the top 8. Then there's a bit of a gap, but I do think those bottom 5 drivers right now have a lot of room to improve.
I'm keeping an eye on one driver that's about to make a big improvement. That is ML Slash coming up to the line, and it's fastest! 135.2, the times tumble yet again. So Slash moving forward, and he has been denied so many times this season, right at the death. Is this to be his day? We are yet to see. I'm not sure who is circulating at the moment, Ghost, because we are in a bit of a lull. Some drivers are just getting out of the pit lane to start their final laps. It's Fraser, I believe, who's coming on nice and strongly, heading through the run towards 130R now.
Yeah, absolutely. 5.5 tenths up in Sector 1 is Fraser, and that goes up to 1.3 in the middle sector. Down towards the last couple corners now. Needs to nail this. It's so easy to invalidate at this chicane, but he's got it just about right. Down towards the line now, hugging the inside wall. No DRS, of course, but to the line, and it's pole at 35.2. The times continue to come down. It was a purple Sector 2 as well, and I do think, although the rain isn't really letting up, I think a line is appearing in the circuit, and the times are getting faster as a result. And another purple sector on the board, that is Joaquin, I believe, currently in P9, but purple in Sector 1 and currently in the middle sector as well. Spyros also improving by a lot, but he really needs to in the place that he's in right now.
Yeah, some 2 seconds off the next fastest guys, but to be honest, he has found plenty of time in that middle sector, so we'll keep an eye on him. We'll keep an eye on Joaquin as well as he navigates the circuit behind. So Spyros then in that striking yellow and black livery coming up towards the line now. It is much, much better. 135.5 goes right into the mix. P6. Joaquin now continuing along then. 117.3 through the first 2 sectors altogether. That would certainly be right in the mix, and if he can nail this Casio triangle, may even be threatening the top 2. Takes a big bite out of the curb. So the first part of the Casio triangle gets away with it though. Try to get back on the power. You can see the oversteer kicking in up to the line, and it's pole for the moment. 135.214, just 1.5 hundredths clear of CPI Fraser. Oh my. This qualifying session has been thrilling. So many changes of that top spot, and clearly ever evolving in this session. So hard to predict how things are evolving. I'm with you, the track is clearly improving all the time, so the question is who can make the most of the conditions. It could come down to last car over the line here.
It could indeed, and well, Napple coming through at the moment. 10% ERS left though. That's going to really hamper his straight line speed down towards the last chicane here. But he is 6/10 up in the middle sector, so this should put him in the mix as well. And wow, all these times are so close. Through to the line goes Napple now, is going to get off of the bottom and in fact into the top 6 there, just 3/10 off of pole, and now we've got less than half a second between the top 9, and well, if this is any indication of how close the race is going to be, we are in for a treat here.
I have to say, Zviadek is on a flyer right now, currently P9 in the session, but remember, that time was good enough for a top 3 spot on the grid not too long ago, so exiting that final corner, playing with that throttle pedal, manages to keep it under control. This could be enormous from Zviadek. It is 1:34.6. That is astonishing. What a leap that has been taken in this qualifying session. Is the rain easing, or has he just found time where others cannot? That is a monstrous lap, a 1:34.6. Nearly 6/10 of a second clear of everyone else.
Coolman.
He says to everyone else, come get me, but Coolman is flying, you say?
Yeah, Coolman across the line now. There it is, pole position for Coolman, and the track is getting better and better with only 1.5 minutes to go. This is going to be all about whether you can time your lap correctly, and it's not going to be Spyros as he retires from the session, I believe in the pit lane, but plenty of people on outlaps at the moment, and honestly, any of these 12 drivers still in the session could get pole at this rate, given how quickly these times are coming down. Someone's gone pole. That's Jashorny pole in Sector 1, but has lost it all in the middle sector, so he's going to try one more time, but he's timed this wrong. 1:13 to go in the session, so he's only going to get one more run, and other people are going to get better conditions, perhaps, about a minute down the road from him.
It doesn't look as though anyone is really on a fast lap at the moment, so it is all in preparation for those final runs, and it's a bit of gamesmanship maybe going on the circuit at the moment, as everyone, as you said, looks to try and get last car over the line. I keep getting rather deceptive camera shots, and my eyes play tricks on me thinking the rain is easing. I honestly don't think it really is, but these drivers have just gotten more and more accustomed to it. I think Chris Rebel and Frank Jashorny have been the first drivers to get themselves onto their laps, so we'll keep an eye on their sector times, but Ghost, I think our eyes are about to be everywhere in these next couple of minutes.
Yeah, this is going to be tough to follow, but there's going to be plenty of action to go. Chris, no improvement for Chris, that's for sure, and not for Joaquin either. He's retired in the pit lane, but Chris bins it at Dunlop, so he's going to be starting this race in last place. Not what he would have wanted. Who's purple? That is Moikuli. Sorry, no, Napple purple in Sector 1, but only barely. And Spiser's improving by 6.5 in Sector 1. So a lot of improvements still to be found, and so many drivers on laps, as I'm not sure who's going to be first across the line out of this bunch. I think it might be Frank Jashorny. He's 8.5 up. At the moment, I think, but coming into Sector 2, what's it going to be? 1.4 seconds. Jashorny in the hunt for pole here. He's just got to make sure he doesn't invalidate at this final chicane.
He's in the hunt for pole, but there's very quick laps going on behind him, so this needs to be perfect, and it's a pretty good run too. Keep it tight to the pit wall. Try and miss it by as little distance as you can. Jashorny goes fastest, 1:34.3. Let's see who's next to step up to the plate. Napple it is behind him. CPI Napple, clean exit off of that final corner. He'll be threatening D-rating on the run to the line. What's the time going to be? It's a 34.5. Goes third for the moment, but there's so much more in play. As Spiser does go fastest, 34.1. Is that going to be enough? Moikuli is third at the moment. CPI Fraser is behind on the track. He crosses the line. It's no improvement. Further back is Slash, goes fifth. Coolman is no, not quite there yet. My apologies. But Finley is finding plenty of time. Finley currently 12th. Where's Deslow going to take him? All the way to the top. Finley goes fastest. Can Coolman deny him at the line? No. Goes, I believe, in P3. And so it is is Finley from the depths, just like in Miami, where he took that pole position with a stunning lap, does so again in Suzuka. Wow, I would say that was the qualifying session of the season. How many changes of pole did we have? Finley snatches it from Spiser in the end. Coolman on that second row alongside Frantic Jashorny from Moy Cooley and Slash, that's your third row. Then Wards, Naffel, Sviatek and Joaquin round out the top 10. Then after that we have Fraser, Spyros and Chris Rebel. What a session that was. That may be more exciting than the Grand Prix will be. Let's see how that will unfold. But Suzuka is always a track that's exciting to watch over one lap, but I think we've watched something pretty special there.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, we saw how the drivers just found time, just kept finding time minute by minute throughout all 18 minutes. I mean, we thought that lap from, I think it was Spiser when he went half a second clear at one point. We thought, well, is anyone going to be able to beat that? And, well, if he had ended on that lap, he would have been near pretty much last. So it was absolutely insane qualifying session. I am so excited to see how the race is going to be.
Yeah, of course. For all intents and purposes, pay very little attention to what's about to go on the screen. We are just using this as a bit of a bridge before we get into the main event. So we've already run through the field, so I guess we can start discussing how we can expect this race to potentially unfold. Suzuka is a track where overtaking is historically quite difficult, but you would say F1 24 is a game where overtaking is quite easy. So how much of a bearing do you think these grid positions are going to have on the race outcome?
I think it's going to be quite important, but at the end of the day, a lot of tracks this year come down to strategy, especially if everyone is similar on pace, and Suzuka can definitely be one of them, although if you're similar on pace to another driver, for example, a two-car DRS train, if you could call it a train, you'll find them either swapping positions every lap, depending on straight-line speed setups, or if someone's gone a bit lower wings, then they'll stay ahead for a while, and the other driver's just going to have to try and get them in the corner exits. But I think, especially with a grid this close, we could see a very, very long DRS train, and it's all going to come down to when the pit stops come in and how good your outlaps are.
Yeah, absolutely. The field could be very bunched up. We will see as we head towards the Grand Prix. And yes, those pit laps could be oh so crucial. And to be honest, PSF3 up to this point in the season has, for all intents and purposes, been, for the most part, one big DRS train, especially that manic race a few weeks ago in Austria. So we're just going to get ourselves loaded in very, very soon. We should get a race back underway very shortly. In the meantime, I'll just run you through PSGL sponsors. PSGL is sponsored by GT Omega. You can receive a 5% discount on all GT Omega products at checkout using the code PSGL. Additionally, we are sponsored by Sim Racing Centre. You can go there using the link in the description. Same goes for GT Omega. SRC, or Sim Racing Centre, will provide you with all your setup and coaching needs on the F1 game. There's a 10% discount at checkout using the code PSGL as well. That is all down below in the video there to see, so make sure to have a look at that. So we are now playing a bit of a waiting game. I think Chris Rebel had been disconnected from the session, has thankfully managed to get back in, so grid will be set up and we'll get to racing later on. And one thing that does kind of irk me is that we do kind of have a look as to what the conditions will be in the race after seeing it in that preliminary race, because I do believe it will be set to match and in the lobby settings it will be set to match the conditions of the race before. So it should start dry anyway, so the DRS trains that Ghost talked about could very much come to fruition there. So we will see how that will unfold, but we'll get back to that very, very shortly. 27 laps of Suzuka. Well, I can't wait for it, can you?
No, absolutely not. I've seen a few races in Suzuka this year on F1 24, and pretty much all of them have been really, really great to watch. So I've seen plenty of things happen at this track over the years as well. I've seen final lap punctures for race leaders, and some people crashing at the pit entry. I don't think we'll quite see that today. I think these drivers are more than accomplished enough to avoid that. Touch wood, but. But no, this track always produces, and I don't think today is going to be any different, especially going by that qualifying. I know the race conditions are going to be different, but even so, as soon as we get onto lap 2 and everyone gets in that DRS, it's going to take someone making a mistake to break the DRS train. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm very, very excited.
One thing that we can talk about here is strategy, because, and you mentioned a few minutes ago as to how important this could be. This track is really, I believe, either a medium hard or hard medium, generally, depending on which way around you want to play it. Do you see potentially a driver on hard tyres starting somewhere up the field? Could that potentially cause a break in the DRS train, or do you think even then they should be able to keep up?
It's tricky on this track. There's a lot of tracks on this game where the hards are pretty much indestructible, and the mediums don't last very long at all. I've seen both strategies work on this game so far in Japan. Usually medium hard is the way to go, but if you're quick enough and you're confident enough, then you can definitely make the hard medium work, as long as you can stay with the medium runners in the first stint, and you're not afraid to have a little bit of a longer medium stint. So we'll see what the drivers decide on. I do think that we'll see drivers towards the back trying out the hard first strategy, but I think it's going to be almost universal mediums to start off with.
We'll see if that is how it goes. Of course, last week's race in Hungary was one of those races that unfolded, as you mentioned, with indestructible hard tyres and a slightly lackluster medium tyres. So we'll see if that will come into play here at Suzuka. We are finally just seconds out from the race. Just to remind you, it is Finley who took his second pole position of the season, starting from the head of the field. And let's see if that will be converted into the race later on. So just to remind you, the grid is Finley, Spiser, Kuhlmann, Frank, Shorney, Moikuli / Wards, Napel, Sviatek, Joaquin, Fraser, Spiros, and Chris Rebel. That is your grid in that order for the Japanese Grand Prix. The drivers at this stage making their final preparation, selecting their tyres, picking their fuel loads too. So, well, I'm getting noticeably impatient. Let's see. Let's get this action underway here. So, just a number of seconds out. Remember, it is Finley at the front. It's a reasonably long run towards turn 1, not the longest, but the start's going to be very, very important. Maybe the drivers on the mediums. That is the point where you can try and take advantage. We are now got the grid in front of us, so we have 5 lights. They leave the grid in Suzuka from the front. It is Finley. Spiser on that front row too, losing ground though. Kuhlmann gets a good start from third on the grid. So sliding into second place is Kuhlmann, and their single file amongst the front runners. So sliding through turns number 1 and 2. You can see a couple side by side in the background. Then getting caught on the inside was Sviatek, and losing a couple of places sliding down the order. Wards too, battling away with Fraser, hopping over the grass through the middle of the S section as they scrap away, still side by side in contact. And Wards is tagged, manages to gather it back up, but drops right down the order, and it's all hell breaking loose at the back of the field. They're running 2 by 2 back there, much more civilised at the front as they manage to sort themselves out heading into the Deckner curve. So Finley still leads Kuhlmann, snatched away that second place. It is, as you said, with most of the drivers going for those medium tyres. So away they go now and try and get established in this race. But well, things were relatively calm at the front, just a couple of changes of position. That S section was so hotly contested near the back of the field.
It really was, and Ward's nearly binned it at Dunlop immediately afterwards as well. He also does have front wing damage. He's got a front right end plate missing, so we'll see if he can make it work or whether he's going to have to come in for repairs. He seems to be sticking with the rear train at the moment, as the grid is definitively split up into 2 distinct groups at the moment. But we'll see if they sort of gravitate towards each other as the race goes on. Certainly Joaquin just lost a couple tenths there, so sometimes with these sorts of DRS trains it can be difficult for the rearwards DRS train to catch up, especially at a track like this, as we've got side by side for P9 between Napple and Spiros. Napple down the inside, they're still going wheel to wheel through turn 2, but it's Spiros who's gotten the better of him, and he keeps P9 for now.
Of course, on those medium tyres, he'll be looking to take advantage of these first few laps. Joaquin is the next car up the road, who is rapidly hemorrhaging time to the race leaders. Those hards are not quite up to speed just yet, and getting separated from the DRS train on lap 1 did not help matters one bit. DRS will first come into play on the main straight at the end of this lap, as a mistake actually through Degner 2 from Spiros. Gets Napple interested, has to yield in the end, looks inside of the hairpin, decides against it. But this back train, they've really got their work cut out, because this front train is still being pulled along by the race leader Finley, who's navigating these corners at Suzuka very, very nicely. So we've seen, as you mentioned, a field split up into 2, and we'll see the DRS games coming into play at the end of this lap. Now, just the one DRS zone at this track, and it's not the longest, although it does cover most of the length of the main straight. So it isn't one where maybe it could be the... you can see back there, actually, Fraser making a move on Slash inside a 130R. So you can move up this train if you want to go on the offensive, and Fraser getting up there. You can see how close together they're all running here. Very little gaps. There's so little dirty air in this game as DRS is open for the first time. Spiser chasing. Coolman is further back in the field then. Is that Napple losing ground?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Napple nearly spun himself into the pit lane as Coolman takes the lead of the Grand Prix down into turn 1. Nothing Finley could do about that one. And Spiros crucially getting his way past Joaquin as well. But he's got a long, long way to go to catch up to the DRS train in front. 3.5 seconds. Well, he's doing well on those medium tyres already. He's cut in about 2 tenths in that first sector. So we'll see if that continues. But of course, it's going to be really tough without the DRS to catch all the way back up. I think the best he can do for now is drop Joaquin on this lap and make sure he has some clean air. But he is already gaining on those front guys.
Yeah, the gap just under 8 tenths of a second between those two, so we'll see if Joaquin can try and hang on, but the hard tyres are not there yet, and he lost a couple of tenths at that hairpin, so the hard tyres taking some time to get going then, and the medium seemed quite strong in these early laps. But yes, Spiros on the move, but he has burnt off the majority of that battery, so any more progress from this point on will be much, much tougher to find. It's a group of 7 for the lead at the moment in Suzuka. Koolman from Finley, Spiser, Frank Jashorny, Moikuli, Fraser and Slash. Fraser again is on the offensive, heading into 130R. Moikuli managed to resist it on that occasion, but Fraser is trying to move up very early on, and with these guys so bunched up, why not try and be opportunistic? But you've got to be careful. You can see up ahead Koolman breaking that slipstream. I don't know if he's going to be too concerned with keeping the lead as it stands right now. He is sitting somewhat in the middle of the track, and Finley's not going to get through at the moment. So they all filter through in formation as Viadic moving up. Joaquin has to yield that one, heading into turn number 1. So moving up is Viadic then. Spiros has not been able to get away from these guys. As you can see, Ward's as well trying to get interested, heading into turn 3. No room there, but they've lost even more time in the back half of that lap. So I mentioned that Spiros, he pulled some time back at first, burnt off that battery, but now that he doesn't have the battery to use, it's so much more difficult to make that impression, and as it stands, there doesn't seem to be much way back for that back group at the moment.
Nah, they really need a safety car at this point to catch up, I think, or some real battling to happen in the front group. But at the moment, everyone in that top 7, apart from perhaps Fraser, seems perfectly happy to just stay behind each other and work with each other until later in the race. Yeah, Ward's really almost biting off more than he could chew there. Got the door slammed right in his face by Joaquin at turn 3. But yeah, it's really tricky to make any ground when you're this far behind. And I think Spiros is going to be cursing Joaquin for losing so much time on those hards in the early stages.
Yeah, the hard tyres just not working at all in these early laps. We're heading on to lap 5 of this race. The DRS is open and Spiser looks to attack Finley, but watch the closing speed of Finley to Coolman, and Coolman could be swamped here. Down the outside goes Finley. He's going to look to try take the lead away. Coolman decides against hanging in there. Spiser was unable to quite follow through, so they swap possessions for the lead once again, but it's all fairly civilised at the moment. Swiatek moved through on Spyros, but they lost another half a second, and things continue to look ever worse for that chasing group. And actually Joaquin looks much more competitive on the hard, so the hards may be finding some pace now, but those early laps were very, very damaging. So we've got a bit of a status quo at the moment, with the leaders just swapping a couple of times. Finley's really checked out in this first sector actually, so Coolman's going to have some work to do, and they're very bunched up behind. Fraser is very close to Moikuli, setting up a move into the hairpin, so Fraser goes diving to the inside. Better wheel-to-wheel contact as Moikuli is forced wide, and Fraser makes another possession up in a P5. And you said earlier he is the only driver here that is not content with his current standing, and that is evident. Moving up to 5th place, Frank Deshorney has been pressuring Spiser all the way here, but Fraser on the move, and I think these drivers have really got to be wary of the man behind, because Fraser, he's not following the normal etiquette of the DRS train and is just going to war out there.
Yeah, he's really taking the initiative, is Fraser. He is not happy with all this, you know, namby-pamby, friendly, just let's just get further ahead of the cars behind. No, he wants to win this race, and making moves into the hairpin, into other corners as well, into 130R earlier on. And Frank Deshorney is going to be looking in his mirrors a little more than normal now for the next few laps, as Spyros gets his way back past Swiatek, but that gap continues to increase between the two trains. 4.6 now, and well, the rear gunner train, their laps are around the sort of late 31s on that time around, but the front gunners are going mid to low 31s, so they're losing 4 or 5 tenths a lap right now.
And you'd have to say they're doing everything right. Swiatek and Spyros have been swapping just down the main straight efficiently. No extra fighting, really. They've done everything that they need to do, but the pace just isn't quite there at the moment. And yes, they are really going to have to rely on this front group getting into trouble or a safety car, as you mentioned. So these guys still running around, and it's fairly civilised. It's not really time to pit just yet, but we'll see if anyone further back in the train wants to try and move through. And actually, if you're further back, 4 seconds maybe too much. It was Coolman makes an error heading out Spoon Curve. His Spies are going to be interested, but it looks like Coolman's going to deploy just enough battery to see that one off. Frank Deshorney getting very tight as well. These guys are all so close, but still playing the cards close to the chest at the moment. Spicer is all over Coolman, but has to back off. There's no way through there, and Coolman may be close enough to Finley to swap the lead again down the main straight. So they plant that throttle pedal, and now they go down again. The DRS and the ERS being used by Coolman is going to come through, and watch Spiser. Spiser's trying to follow through, but doesn't have the space, and through goes Coolman into the lead, but Spiser gets the gap there as Finley yielded on the entry to turn number 1. Is that going to cost him 2nd place? It is. So 2 places lost in 1 corner from Finley. Spiser getting through, and that can be the danger of trying to keep things clean, trying to avoid the time loss. Sometimes you can suffer from a bit of possession loss then, and that was a great opportunistic move from Spiser in the right place. I can barely get my words out, and yeah, just timed that one perfectly, and Finley just caught in the wrong place there.
I don't blame you. There's so much action going on. What a great race this is. But yeah, Coolman taking advantage there. He's back up to P1 as Finley down 2 positions from where he started this race now. And well, in a DRS train, the one place you don't really want to be is the 3rd car. I know this is a 7-car long DRS train, but the 3rd car and downwards in a longer one. And well, Finley is going to have some work to do now, but another mistake from Coolman at Spoon, and could that open the door to Spiser? The slipstream you get down to 130R in this track, and especially after it, is absolutely incredible. But Spiser choosing not to send one into the final chicane. Franek, though, going for the outside line on Finley. Finley losing another position there. Deshorney really getting his throttle on at the exit. They're still side by side going down towards turn 1. Coolman still has the lead, but the 3 cars behind the top 2 really going with wheel to wheel now, add it into turn one. Fraser looking for a way through as well. The man who's been so aggressive so far in this first stint, just shawning round the outside. What an overtake it's been, and Finley could lose another position here to Fraser, but he just about holds on.
Oh, wow, they're really getting into it out there. Franek was so aggressive, and what a move around the outside of the Casio triangle to move up into that third place. Finley just managing to resist Fraser in the end. But yeah, the gloves are starting to come off in this lead group then. Is it a sign of things to come as Fraser kicks the rear end out, heading out of Degna 2? They seem to settle down on this lap then, running single file through the middle sector. Slash and Moikule are just spectators at the moment, wondering what on earth is happening in front of them. Let's update though on some of the proceedings back there. Swiatek has come in very, very early. Now those hards can go the distance, I believe, but it is an early lap to come in, and what I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted by cars battling was that coming in early could be a way in for these cars behind. It's going to be difficult, and you need to get probably a lot of things to go your way and a really powerful undercut, but that's something. Oh, I'm interrupted by cars again as Fraser dives to the inside, gets it all locked up, and off the road is Finley, spearing and turning around. Did they come together, heading through the Casio triangle, and Finley, what a nightmare few laps it's been, kicking out the rear end too, heading out of the Casio triangle, and is gonna lose out here as well, down the main straight to Joaquini, moves through. So Fraser, I was on board with him and I didn't quite get a good look of what happened to Finley, but Fraser seemed to lose the rear heading onto braking, and did that lead to contact between them?
I don't actually think there was contact. I think Finley just got two wheels on the grass, and then when he braked, the rest was history. Because he just, either he didn't get left the space or he didn't use the space available to him, and under braking just completely locked the rears and span round. So now he's got a lot of work to do once again. 5 seconds is the gap between the two groups, with the first group now down to 6 cars. And by the way, Coolman also lost 2 positions on the run down towards turn 1. He was leading the race after all of that commotion, but Spiser and Franek just sailed past. It almost looked like Coolman just let them through. He's not really interested in a hard battle at the moment, but like you said, those who've come in very early, Swiatek and now Spiros as well, they've got a real opportunity here. They've got to make the most of these outlaps, because the mediums are going to start having some problems at this stage. They'll be around 35 to maybe 40% wear at this point.
Starting to grind, the grip starting to fade away. Let's see if anyone from this front group is going to come in. It's a bit early still, you would think, and yes, they are just going to run in formation flying for the time being. Is Finley in P8 going to come in? The answer to that is yes. So Finley trying to get back in is by really the only way he can possibly manage, which is going into the pit lane and trying to grab an undercut. So Finley in, it's going to be hard tyres presumably. Yes, it is, and away goes Finley trying to get back in this race. The pole setter after that error earlier on, trying to work his way back into contention. So that group of 6 still running at the moment and fairly calm out there. Actually on board with Coolman, he has a full battery at the moment, so the pace isn't absolutely electric from these guys, and that may open up the undercut. We shall see. Finley's actually come out behind both Spiros and Swiatek, so he's got some work to do to try and clear those guys, but they're all on the hard tyres. Similar strategy, so let's see what they're able to come back in. They do seem to be chasing down the gap, though, at least to the drivers immediately in front. That gap between Spiros and Napple has come down. Can you verify any lap times then?
I can, and well, while they may be catching up to the rear gunner pack, they're not catching up to the front pack. At least Swiatek certainly isn't. His last lap was a 32.0, and the front runners are still running high 31s at the moment. So in fact, Swiatek losing maybe 1 or 2 tenths to the front runners at the moment on this lap, but perhaps once those hards really get into gear, we'll start to see that time tumble. I'll update you again once the laps come in. But the front runners coming across the line now with Spiser. Franek into the pits, taking the initiative out of the top 6, but Spiser's lap across the line is a 32.0, and pretty much everyone behind him very similar. So we'll see what Swiatek and co do at the end of this one.
He is chasing Spyros and getting chased hard by Finley, who's trying to move up. Frantic and Wards came in on the previous lap. Where will they come out in relation to these guys? I imagine Frantic will be some way up the road still, because they haven't quite found enough time as it stands. Finley trying to get up a run on Zviatic, coming down the main straight, getting a great run. Look at this, huge straight line speed, getting up and alongside. It's surely going to be through. Zviatic cannot do much from that position. He yields on the entry and slots into P11 for the moment. They come out just in front of Wards, who gets onto the throttle now, some way behind, so certainly a lot of work to do for AMS Wards. Finley getting through on Zviatic. Spyros is next up, and how did these guys compare to the leaders on that last lap?
Yeah, they're finding some time now. They gained about half a second on that lap. 31.4 it was for Spyros, compared to 32 zeros or so for the front six, or front five, I should say. So, yeah, they're starting to reel them in, but there's still a lot more to do. And I would have thought most of the top five will be in this lap. We'll see, especially Moi Cooley, who's lost a second now. He's out of DRS range, so we'll see if he takes that as an invitation to head into the pits. They come past the pit lane now. Who's coming in? Spiser in,
all of them.
Coolman, Fraser, all of them, all five into the pits. And well, we'll see how they do on the exit. Where is Franek Shoshone? That's the big question. He's coming down towards the final chicane now, and Wards gets himself the first track limits penalty of the evening as well.
Frantic Shoshone has the throttle pinned out. He's on the overtake button. He knows how important this is. All his rivals are emerging from the pit lane now. Frantic Shoshone, there is up in front of him Spiser. They're going to be almost side by side in the turn one, and Spiser has to get out of that one then. Frantic able to jump his way into the lead, but not out of DRS range, and I think that's why a lot of these drivers did come in, as Wards has retired. That's in the pit lane off the back of that penalty, so that's another driver gone. We're left with 11 in the race. So Frantic Shoshone leads from Spiser and Kuhlman. Slash is still in there at the moment, so as it stands right now, we have a lead quartet, because Fraser, I'm not exactly sure why, but he's lost a huge heap of time in that pit lane.
Yeah, he has. I'm not sure exactly how. I did see that I think it was Slash or someone, actually it was Moi Cooley, had a really bad pit entry. He was very, very slow coming in, and that's why you're seeing him at the back now of all of these cars. But yeah, the only cars now not to pit are the ones who started on the hards. That's Joaquin and Napple. It's 11.5 seconds up the road to the net race leader of Franek Shoshone, but we'll see how much that gap comes down, if any, because those hards are still going to be pretty good for those top two at this stage. And well, when are they going to pull the trigger, and how fast are they going to be on the mediums? I think they're going to be very dangerous, especially if the other cars start battling amongst themselves and losing more time. These two are going to be fighting their way through, similar to Hungary last week with Franek Shoshone himself strapping on the mediums late on and powering his way through the grid as Spiser takes from the aforementioned driver the net race lead.
As it stands right now, that gap just under 12 seconds. And we saw in the early laps too how much of a delta there was actually between the mediums and the hards. Of course, the hards did come into play later on in the stint, but those mediums were so much faster straight out of the box. So Joaquin and Napple are going to enjoy that advantage when they do come in. When that will be, we don't know. Probably, I would imagine, around about lap 17, maybe slightly earlier actually, around about lap 50, and we'll see. They've still got a few more laps to go, though, you would think, on those hard tyres. Then try to extend it and minimise the time loss. That gap is coming down rather quickly. Spiser did take control of the front of this race. Franek Shoshone behind him. He's going to have to try and put up with the fact that his tyres are now a lap older as Spiser runs wide through the first part of Spoon Curve. No major time loss, but could be a warning. We'll see. These guys running just over 3 seconds clear as Moi Cooley picks up a time penalty, so his race having a couple of blows now, a series of blows, and running on his own without a train to follow. Spyros leading away at that chasing pack. They're just over 3 seconds behind the group in front, as I think we're going to see a couple of swaps then. Napple moving through on Joaquin, going into turn number 1, gets through nice and easy. Franek may do the same onto Spiser. They're going to want to keep running formation, because well, you may think battling is slow, it is, but swapping down the straight constantly with DRS is faster. You gain just a couple of tenths of a second every time you do that, so that's why these drivers are going to want to swap. They don't want to hang around, and they want to keep this moving because they can't lose out too much. Spiros is behind 3.5 seconds, but you look at Finley, you look at Fraser, the guys that were in that lead pack, they don't want to concede too much just yet. There is time for battling later on in the race, and of course they've got to worry about the top two guys as well, so this net leading pack, it may be tempting to just go at it, but it's far too early in the race to do that at this stage.
Yeah, 3.3 seconds between the two groups right now. We'll see if that comes down at all, or indeed if it increases over the next couple laps. And who knows, even Spiros could get his way back into this battle as well for the race lead, as well as all the cars behind him. But I think lap 14 or so is when I was thinking that the Hards might be thinking about coming in. They might leave it until lap 15, especially since that gap hasn't come down all that much. But they're going to be starting to struggle on those Hards at this point. I wonder if either of them are going to pull the trigger. Not this time, but pretty soon I expect we're going to see them come in for the mediums, and then they'll be in chase mode going after the drivers ahead. Frantic Jashorny now is going to be in danger of another position swap, but I don't think he's going to mind that too much at this point.
He's probably wary of Coolman trying to follow through, which is what happened to Coolman. Of course, he lost 2 places on 1 lap. That is one thing that Frantic Jashorny is going to want to try and avoid, as Fraser moves past Spiros, as does Finley. So these guys now swapping order in the train. That gap is held fairly steady to the group in front, and Finley, who does have fresher tyres than Spiros, who was leading, and Fraser, who has even fresher tyres still, they are going to go on the hunt and try and chase that gap down. 3.5 seconds. Keep an eye on that gap, that number. Let's see how it evolves in the next few laps. So according to Ghost, these top 2 guys should be pitting on this lap, or at least very, very soon. They want to try and stop the bleeding at this stage. That gap is coming down by probably just under a second a lap by my reckoning, so we'll see what they can do. They don't want it to come down too much and give themselves too much to do on the mediums, but of course when they pit onto those mediums, they are going to have a fairly healthy advantage, so they're going to want to try and move through on that. They probably will be right, I imagine, at the back of the field, because Moikuli is in last place, is just under 19 seconds behind these guys. So I think they will emerge even behind him, and a lot of work to do then. They don't want to get caught up in traffic. Napple stays out, Joaquin stays out, so these guys are extending longer than we thought, heading on to lap 16 now, still running 1 and 2, and they're really banking on a strong medium stint with fresh tyres at the end.
Perhaps even a safety car, because there's a lot of cars behind them very close to each other, and you know, it's not completely out the realm of possibility that there might be an incident at some point between them. Perhaps they're banking on that, as Fraser and Finley do a bit of a swap around as well, but that gap's in fact gone up. It's up to 4 seconds now between the two groups, so despite Fraser and Finley being very, very quick on the previous lap, they haven't managed to make good on that pace on this lap. It has come down again through sector 1, but it's not coming down as quickly as they would have liked it to.
No, not at the moment. So we'll keep an eye on the ebb and flow of it. Fraser is, Finley behind at Degner 1,
dear.
runs wide and gets a time penalty. It's not a track, as I said in qualifying, that you'd expect many penalties, but it is certainly a danger. Corners like the Degners, corners like Spoon Curve can throw up those surprises, and Finley falling foul of that then. What a disaster. Well, not a disastrous miss. Maybe he can try and salvage it, but it's not been what the pole setter was looking for up to this point in the Grand Prix. But Fraser has had a very good lap then. I think these guys, when they get to the front, they've got to use as much of their battery as possible, really get on it, and Fraser, with comparably fresh tyres to the leaders, is making good inroads. Let's see if he can keep up that progress. Watch the top 2, they both stay out again, so they're continuing to stay out, and they are continuing to lose time to the group behind. They really are looking for a high tyre differential as they swap places, heading into turn 1 with Joaquin taking away the race lead from Napple, but he runs wide actually through turn 1, and Napple getting all caught up behind him then. That's not efficient passing, and they're going to lose even more time to the guys behind. Spiser still still leading along. Frank, Jashorny, Kuhlman and Slash. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fraser now. Let's see if he can continue to move in. That gap, 3.3 seconds. It really hangs in the balance at this stage, but he's so fast in this first sector. Look at that gap slice its way down. 2.8 seconds just in a couple of corners. Taking away that gap. I imagine those leaders... Well, I imagine they can't be running far off their fastest pace, but Fraser's progress is astonishing in that moment. Finley is struggling to stay in DRS, as is Spyros further back. He has got fresh tyres, and he's using them to good effect. Fraser is on a charge, and, well, we saw how aggressive he was in that first stint. That group of 4 will not want him latching back on.
Yeah, the front runners at the moment, they're doing sort of 31 zeros, 31 ones, but Fraser's last lap was a 30.2. He is destroying that gap at the moment. It's back down to 2.5 seconds. It's going to be another second or so he'll take out of it on this lap, maybe 8 tenths, something like that. And, well, Finley is doing what he needs to do and staying with him, but the pole sitter, after that spin earlier on, he's given himself a lot of work to do with that penalty, and Napple finally into the pits, but I do think it's too late now. I don't think they're going to have really any bearing on this race. I think they're going to be too far behind. Napple coming out on those medium tyres, but he's going to be all the way towards the back, and with a huge amount of work to do. Those hards are going to be still running pretty fine at the moment. They're all doing high 30s or low 31s. So Napple, last place is where he exits the pits, and Joaquin is in for a shock when he comes in, presumably this lap.
Yeah, staying out even longer, lap 18. When you think about it, the medium runners, some of them were doing longer stints at the start of the race, because he's going to be leaving himself with just 9 laps, so not very much at all. And really, plenty of work to be done, and I think too much. I'm with you on that one. As I'm watching, Slash getting rear locked, heading into the hairpin, managed to save it, but teetering on the edge of that 1 second. He's going to have to use that battery. You cannot let this train go. That means Fraser, though, that gap is just over 2 seconds. He's continuing to chop away. Does he have enough laps, though? We shall see. These leaders are surely going to start scrapping in a few laps' time. Let's see how they are going to play out. So Spiser leads along Frank Jashorny. They haven't really been swapping, it must be said. Frank Jashorny has sat in that second position, not really making a manoeuvre, hasn't had much threat from Kuhlman either. As Joaquin stays out another lap, he must be playing for a safety car at this point, you would think.
Yeah, he's got to be, or going for the softs at the end, but even that is not a choice I would advise for personally. But here we go, the top 3 now, or the net top 3 I should say. Frank Jashorny right behind, but chooses not to go for it into turn 1. He's going to leave this late. He doesn't want to start battling at this point because he probably is aware of Fraser, who has actually lost time on this lap. It's back up to 2.8 seconds, that gap. So Fraser, as we know, mighty in Sector 1, but if he can't get it back under 2 seconds again, then I think that's going to be his place in this this battle for the front places, just about over, as well as Finley just behind. But we've got Spiser and Jashorny going wheel to wheel into the hairpin. Jashorny around the outside, but backs out just before the braking zone for fear for his life, presumably. And Spiser stays ahead, but I think as the laps are ticking down now, these guys are starting to remember that F1 is about overtaking the drivers ahead of you and not just sticking behind them with DRS.
Yes, indeed. As the laps tick down, that is going to continue to come into effect. And Spicer's made a couple of errors on this lap. There was the one at Degnan 1, which gave Frank Jashorny that opportunity right up behind him, but he's hesitating. He doesn't want to send it just yet. And Kuhlman now getting on the action then, trying to follow through. Frank Jashorny jinks to the inside of the Casio triangle, but breaks early. He's trying to deter Kuhlman, I think, more than anything, even more so than pressuring Spicer. And Spicer! Oh, he's gone into the pits! Oh my goodness, he oversteers and goes completely off and into the pit lane. He managed to not take himself out of the race, but he's taken himself out of contention. Spicer, I said he had a couple of oversteer moments on that lap, and well, the mother of all oversteer moments then, heading out of the final corner of lap 19 into the pit lane. That was not a voluntary pit stop, I can assure you, and he retires from the race on the spot. Spiser, what a critical error. You'd say well done for not crashing himself out of the race, but what an error to make at such a time. Coolman went through on Frank Shorney in the run towards turn 1. What a twist in the tail then. How on earth has Spiser done that?
Well, we almost saw Napple do exactly that early in the race, in the opening few laps. He was coming out of the final corner and had a huge moment and somehow managed to save it before he went into that divider between the pit entry and the racetrack. Just about kept it on the tarmac, but Spiser, well, he kept it on the tarmac, but the wrong bit of tarmac, and headed straight into the pit lane, and wow, what a mistake that was. Joaquin still staying out, by the way. 3.5 seconds is the gap to the drivers behind. He has to stop at some point, but he's leaving this very, very late, and through the Casio Triangle he goes. Is he coming in this lap? He's still staying out. He is desperately praying for a safety car at this point. It is not coming for him, though. And 3 seconds, well, I'll tell you who is coming for him, the drivers behind. Coolman now under pressure from Ciccone, though, and Franek Ciccone takes back the net race lead into turn 1 as Slash just watching and waiting behind. He's been there this whole time at the back of this train, and, well, he could well get himself a podium after Spicer's spin, but look at the gap to Fraser now. We said it was going up a little while ago. It's come straight back down, 1.6, and Fraser is back in this race.
What a charge it has been, but are there enough laps? He's going to rely on some more battling from these guys ahead, or potentially Joaquin, who is still staying out there. And, well, when you think about it, when he comes out, there is no driver that he's really going to be in reach of. Napple is 14 seconds off the race lead in P10. That's too much. Well, potentially he can get towards Moycooley with that time penalty, but he's not really playing for much here, so he may try and extend for as long as he can, and that could potentially interfere with this lead group. That gap is just over 2 seconds. Frank Ciccone, I'm sure, is going to be well aware of that, and Coolman and Slash will be trying to take full advantage of it too, right in behind. But is it a waiting game as it stands right now? Are these guys going to try and hold station? Ideally, you would think you want to be in second place going into the final lap, but are these drivers already thinking that far ahead? Let's watch Joaquin. Does he stay out? You bet he does. Still continuing on for another lap. Coolman is not really close enough to Franek to challenge on this lap, and same going for Slash, as Napple and Moycooley are swapping places down there at the Casio Triangle, and Moycooley has found himself going off the circuit, I believe, and has dropped back a couple of seconds. So Moycooley losing out to Napple, didn't quite catch that exchange as it happened, but certainly not the race he was after, and currently running P10. Still a point on offer, but as it stands, not really much more than that to play for at the moment. But now these top three are coming right up towards Joaquin. Well, we wondered what kind of role Joaquin was going to play in this race. I think 10 laps ago we didn't think it would be this. We thought he would be the hunter. He is in fact the hunted, as Franek closes in, and being clinical as you come up behind this race leader is going to be so crucial for all these guys.
1.1 seconds is going to be in DRS range at the end of the lap, but how much of a problem is Joaquin going to cause to these top three, with Fraser now 1.5 seconds behind, 1.6. It's teetering on the edge. He's so close. He can smell a battle coming, but he needs to find the time and not go wide at Spoon. That was very close. Just about kept it on the circuit. I think that was pretty much perfect, in fact, but Finley staying with him, but that penalty is going to be very costly for the British driver. But now Franek Ciccone within a second of Joaquin, and well, locking the front right as well as he goes into the Casio Triangle. 0.6 of a second. Is he close enough to make a move into turn 1? Joaquin stays out once again, and Ciccone is going to have the DRS, but he's not close enough, and he's going to lose a ton of time here, and this is perfect for Fraser, who's going to get himself right back in this battle with 4.5 laps left to go in this Grand Prix.
Mechanical grip so important in this first sector, and that's where the time loss is going to be greatest for these guys. Frank Shorty, can he carve out any opportunity through this end section? It's so difficult to make any sort of moves, and Fraser, yes, is going to be brought right into play. Out of Dunlop, look at how close Coolman is to Frank Shorty. The three of them cannot be separated. Slash still watching and waiting in from behind. A move into the hairpin potentially. It wasn't a good run out of Sector 2 from Joaquin, and Frank Shorty is on the move. Can he spot a move heading into the hairpin? No, there's nowhere to go. He can't quite find it. Coolman was into the back of Frank Shorty to the middle of the hairpin, who gets up and alongside Joaquin, and they're going to go side by side through 200R. Joaquin, though, he's deploying the battery. He does not want to give up this race lead, and Frank still cannot get through, and still all four of them with nothing to separate them. Fraser is charging now and getting up towards these four. Surely Frank can move, but Coolman got a better exit out of Spoon Curve in behind and is threatening even still. Can Slash take advantage of this? Who knows? Look at this. Frank is still hesitating and putting himself under more pressure, and Fraser is now here. He is within DRS range. Still, Joaquin stays out. Still, he resists the challenge of the trio of drivers. Oh, now I should say quartet of drivers behind them. Fraser is there. Surely Frank's going to go through on this straight, and surely Coolman is going to follow through in the slipstream. Can they create separation? Oh, they bag wheels down the straight. Joaquin immediately pulls over and lets the other two through. How bizarre. And, well, that was something rather unusual. Joaquin pulls over, goes down into position number 5. That was something rather unusual. In fact, I was just checking teams, he's a teammate of Ward's, so he doesn't have really a foothold in this race, but he's just managed to bring these guys together. Fraser now up with the top 3. What a lap that was.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, I had no idea what Joaquin was doing. I also checked the teams just to make sure that he wasn't Fraser's teammate or something. But no, it's Wards is out this race already, so it's just an agent of chaos. That's all Joaquin was. Frank Deshorny is not going to be happy with him, but Fraser certainly is, as these top 4 with 3.5 laps left to go are right together, and we are going to see some perhaps desperate moves into these last few laps. Everyone on pretty much the same tyres. Shoshone 1 lap older, but that's not going to be too much of an issue for him, I don't think. Finley way down in this battle now, and of course Joaquin surely into the pits this lap, you would have thought, but who knows at this point. Shoshone into Casio Triangle. Coolman, here we go. He's going to have the DRS down towards turn 1. He's got plenty of battery as well, 80 or so percent. DRS to turn 1. He looks to the inside, but he's not using anything. He's going to go for it anyway, though, to the inside, but no, just trying to scare him to further back. 3 and 4. Me, Slash, and Fraser side by side through turn 1. Slash on the inside keeps the place. Fraser, though, on the inside for the next corner. They're still side by side all the way through the incredible racing, and Fraser makes his way through into the podium positions, and Slash is going to be wondering if it ends like this, how on earth he hasn't ended up on the podium here.
What a move from CPI Fraser! That was staggering, as in second place Coolman just waited. The other two were on the scene, and my oh my, how on earth has that unfolded? Fraser now on the podium. What a final stint it has been. Can he challenge the top 2? Coolman has decided to play it risky because he was nearly swamped by the 2 drivers behind him. He will potentially have to make that move very soon. There are 2.5 laps to go in Suzuka, with Frank Deshorny leading and Coolman chasing him, and Fraser drawing ever closer in position 3, and he has been the man on the move this entire race. Can he find another way through 2 more drivers? Frank Deshorny is breaking that slipstream on the run towards 130R. Coolman showing little regard for it. Will Coolman, surely Fraser is close enough that if Coolman hesitates again, he will punish him. Coolman surely is going to have to go for the race lead on this lap, or Fraser will punish him, but it wasn't a good exit from Fraser, so maybe Coolman can continue to play this game, use this gambit. Let's see, down the main straight they go. Coolman closes, this time he goes to the inside of turn 1 and gets through on Frank Deshorny, moves into position 1. Coolman, his hand wasn't forced, but he decided to go for it anyway. Coolman goes to the front of the race. Frank Deshorny chasing Fraser and Slash, 4-way battle for the win it is gonna be. They swap places again, and Frank Deshorny now has second. He saved up his battery well in the lead, and you would have to say going into this final lap, he's the one in the best position.
Napple, by the way, up to P6 as well on those mediums. He has recovered very, very well. He could even get into the top 5 because of Finley's penalty. He just needs to close 2.5 seconds in the next couple laps. But yeah, Coolman, he's got a championship to think about as well, though, because he's going to take the lead of the championship regardless, but he's going to want to take it by as many points as possible in the absence of the top 2 coming into this race. And there was a big mistake from Jashawney just out of the hairpin, and Fraser tried to punish him for it but couldn't quite get his nose in. And now with 1.5 laps left to go, it's all going to come down to lap 27. Slash is still in this as well, but he's been very passive all race long, really. And I don't know if he's going to finally find an aggressive instinct into the last lap or whether he's just going to wait for something to go wrong. That's probably his best bet at the moment, but who knows? In a race as crazy as this, Coolman leads going down towards turn 1, but Jashawney's going to have the DRS. He's using everything he's got in the battery to try and take the challenge to the race leader. I don't think he's got enough, though. Down to turn 1, it's going to be so close. He looks to the outside, but Coolman gets him off. He goes for the switchback on the inside, but he can't quite get his nose in. He makes a mistake on the exit, and Fraser's through. Fraser's got a chance to win this race now.
Why oh my, it was such a good exit off the Casio triangle from Coolman, and Frantic Jashawney couldn't get near enough. He went for a desperation lunge into T2, didn't come off, and now Fraser runs second. Coolman has got to worry about resisting him. He's got far less battery than CPI Fraser, so Fraser is eyeing this up then. Frantic Jashawney, was that just a key mistake? Look at how close Fraser is towards the hairpin. He is going to go through everything at the Silverstone race winner and the Hungary race winner too. They navigate that hairpin, then punching onto the throttle. Fraser's got a full battery to use. Can he use it to good effect? Spoon curve, that exit is going to be so crucial. Can Coolman nail it under the absolute biggest pressure? Looking for another race victory. Through a spoon curve they go. Coolman putting dirty air into the face of CPI Fraser, planting the throttle once again, and they're both on the overtake button. Fraser with the slipstream, 2.5 tenths, 2 tenths flat. He's gaining all the time towards the inside of 130R. CPI Fraser leads the Japanese Grand Prix with a move on the inside of 130R on the final lap. He was done and dusted at the start of the final stint. He got back on, he made all the moves, and CPI Fraser in astonishing fashion wins the Japanese Grand Prix from NLR. Coolman in second, Frantic Jashawney third, holding off Slash. Finley, I think he is going to manage to see off that 5th place with the penalty. Spiros getting back in front of Napple in the end. Not sure what happened then. Zviadek in P8, Moikuli P9, Joaquin in P10, I imagine going for a fastest lap of the race. What an ending and what a drive. CPI Fraser, we said early in the race, he's the one driver not content with where he is. He lost out through the pit phase, but what a final stint that was. CPI Fraser takes an incredible race win.
The game gives him driver of the day. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. What a drive from Fraser. Like you say, he was the one driver who looked like he was gunning to win this race early on in the race, where he was making moves when everyone else was just content to stay one by one all the way through the track, and he was making moves into places no one else was daring. And in the end, through 130R down the inside, he saved up enough battery to send it on the final run to the final few corners, and he made it work. What a brilliant drive, and probably the most deserved race win I've seen. It has been 2 races that I've commentated on in PSGL, so you know, there's not a lot of pool to choose from there, but still, incredible drive, and Joaquin did get the fastest lap in the end. I'll let you run through the order.
Absolutely. So Fraser, with a last gas pass on LR Coolman, takes the win, denying Coolman, who will move into the championship lead regardless. Frantic Jashawney and Slash rounding off the top 4. What a show they have put on. Finley in 5th place. What could have been if it wasn't for that spin at the Casio Triangle. Spiros in P6 ahead of Napple. Then Zviadek, Moikuli and Joaquin round off the points finishers, and indeed the finishers. The Spiser, Wards and Chris Rebel did not see the checkered flag. Well, I think I have commentated on 5 of the 6 races we've seen, but I would confidently say that was the drive of the season so far from Fraser. You could see he started outside of the top 10 in P11, but that did not matter one bit. He moved up at the start, he moved up in the first stint, he apparently double stacked behind his de facto teammate in the pit stops, which can happen with these F1 World Cars, but nevertheless did not let that stop him and came through to take the win. And for our first race commentated together, I think we've been treated to an absolute cracker.
We certainly have. I couldn't have wished for anything better. That was absolutely incredible stuff. And, I think Fraser getting double stacked due to these F1 World Cars in the pits, I think it's not just an incredible drive, but also justice that he got himself back onto the podium. But to win the race, that was all Fraser. That was all his own skill and his own opportunistic driving, and he made it work. Never did anything particularly dirty from what I saw, and a fully deserved race win. What a drive that was.
That was absolutely staggering stuff from CPI Fraser. And of course, it hasn't been the easiest season up to this point. In fact, this is his first race finish of the season. He's attended one race, that was Austria, which he didn't finish, but comes through here in Suzuka and cruises through the entire PSF3 field pretty much and takes out that race win. So no points on the board before this race. That will now be 16 points going forward. So absolutely stunning stuff. To clarify, of course, Leonardo, who was leading the championship on 43 points ahead of Acid on 40. We didn't see either of those guys here tonight. But Coolman, with that second place finish, grabs an extra 12 points to his standings. I don't believe he was pole position or fastest lap. So that will be 51 points to his name at this stage in the season, which is a championship lead of 8 points. It's not nothing. It's fairly substantial in PSGL, but with half the season done, half the season left to go, who knows what the rest of this championship is going to have in offer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one driver who's going to be disappointed with where he is in the championship at this point is Finley. Given how much pace he's had, you mentioned this is his second pole of the season, but he has yet to win a race. He's only got one podium as well. He hasn't had the consistency that he would have wanted. He's got some work to do if he wants to find himself in the championship fight. He should still be safely in the top 5 or top 6 in the championship, but he needs to find some consistency in the second half of the season if he really wants to challenge the likes of Coolman, Leonardo and Acid at the front.
I think he has struggled in the wheel-to-wheel battles this season. That's something that I've picked up on. So, and obviously in PSF3, I mean, we saw it tonight. Wheel-to-wheel racing is so essential, especially on F124 with the monster slipstream and the lack of dirty air, meaning you're always going to be in close proximity with other cars. But Finley, he has the speed. Let's see if he can pull it off. Starting from next race, which will be in Jeddah. That is right. So the next round of the championship will be the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix from the Jeddah circuit, one that's very unlike Suzuka, an ultra high speed street affair. Let's see how that's going to unfold, but I think we've said most of what needs to be said for tonight. I'll give an extra shout out to our sponsors, GT Omega and SRC Sim Racing Centre. Check them out in the description down below. Make sure to have a look there. Remember, discounts at the checkout. But going to come to you, Ghost, for potentially any final thoughts from what you've seen in front of you tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I do hope that the rest of the races this season are as good as the two I've commentated so far, because it's been phenomenal stuff, especially today. It's one of the best races I've seen in a long, long time. But congratulations to Coolman. And, Jeddah, it can be a circuit where some drivers can have a very big advantage. I've seen so often at Jeddah where several drivers who are very close together on other tracks, there's just one driver who's really, really good at Jeddah. And we might see that again next week. But it can be really, really tough to stay consistent at that circuit. So I think it could be a race that is defined by mistakes more so than it gets defined by a particularly strong pace. But I do hope to be proved wrong. But turn 3 especially, absolutely brutal. If you turn in slightly too early, that is your race immediately over. So a lot of championship positions and points riding on these next few rounds, because later into the next 3 weeks, we'll really be getting into the business end of the season, where drivers are going to be very much thinking about championship points. So yeah, interested to see how it goes. Coolman with the initiative, so he is the man to beat at the moment.
Let's see if anyone can topple him. Next in Jeddah, as you've alluded to, it's such an unpredictable affair. Let's see how that's going to unfold. But we're going to leave you for tonight with Suzuka finally in the books. So for myself and Ghost, it is goodbye for now. And until next time, we'll see you later.